Chiamo, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Nyyehyee, Apoo Afahye da, Medinde, Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan, Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi Mu. That means greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, meaning African or black people. Today is Apoo Afahye da. My name is Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan, Odwirafo of the Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi Mu, the Akwamu Nation in North America. Apoo is an Akan observance. Our version of the Apoo observance, which is a 13-day observance, revolves around the vernal equinox, or fefewbere, the spring equinox. Now, if you look at the cycle of the year, if you look at it similar to the day cycle, when the sun rises in the east and crosses the horizon at the evening point, that is akin to spring, when things are beginning to bloom and grow and develop. When the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, which is noon, is at its most vigorous activity, its most vigorous output. That's noon is similar to the summer solstice, the hottest time of the year, 15 hours of light, about 9 hours of darkness. When the sun's light begins to diminish and the sun sets at the evening point of the day, in the evening, on the horizon, that is akin to the fall, when the sun's energy begins to diminish to the point where there are about 12 hours of darkness, 12 hours of light. When the sun goes in the quote-unquote underworld for the 12 hours of the night and reaches its lowest point, which is midnight, that is akin to the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, about 15 hours of darkness, about 9 hours of sunlight. And then about 1 minute or more per day, the sun's light begins to increase until it gets to the point of around March 20th, March 21st, when it's at the equinox again. The sun is sitting upon the cross of the celestial equator and the Earth's ecliptic, or Earth's pathway around the sun. The sun is sitting on that cross, of course. This is where they get the Easter foolishness of the fictional character Jesus and so forth. But that is spring and the return of growth and development and so forth. When the sun sets in the west and crosses the horizon, that is also akin to a seed being planted in the ground. And when the seed is planted in the ground and germination begins to take place, the first thing that happens is the roots go down into the soil, into the blackness of the soil. This is similar to the sun. Once it sets, the seed is planted, it makes contact, then it goes down to the darkness, which is around December 21st. So it sets around September 22nd, and then it goes into the darkness around December 21st. Its roots are going down. Then eventually the sprouts shoot up and then break through the surface of the earth, and then you have an awareness of what was going on germinating under the ground in the darkness. That sprouting is around March 21st. That's also akin to the sun rising and breaking through the horizon and manifesting its first light. And then, of course, eventually the flower fully flowers, and that's the fullness of its development. That's the highest point in the sky. That's summer, the summer solstice, noon, and so forth. And then eventually, when the sun begins to set, that means the fruit begins to fall off of the tree, off of the flower, and so forth. It falls into the ground. We harvest at that point, which is September 22nd again. There's a harvest period, but then there's also a reseeding period, so the cycle can begin again. Just like we take advantage of the shifts in energy during the day. We rise with the sun. We're at our most vigorous activity during the hot part of the day, noon and around that time afterwards. Then we begin to cool down during the evening point, and then we go to sleep for regeneration at night so we can rise again or resurrect with the sun. We take advantage of those shifts in energy and utilize them to our benefit. We also take advantage of those shifts in energy during the 4 major cycles of the year. So we have a New Year's celebration, the harvesting time around September 22nd. That's our Obrajida Nananom Som, or life purification, 7-day New Year's celebration. So it's a harvesting time, but it's also a seeding time. Then 6 months later, the halfway point After we've gone through the dark part of the year, the cool part of the year, the regenerative part of the year, now we begin to go through the hot part of the year. Beginning March 21st, we have a 13-day observance called Apoo Afahye. Different groups on the continent, different Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, they have various forms of taking advantage of the energy, the shifts in energy around March 20th, 21st, June 21st, June 20th, September 22nd, 23rd, December 20th, December 21st. Those shifts in energy, we take advantage of those. So some people have celebrations on the March 21st, September 22nd, and so forth. So this is a good time to take advantage of that balanced, equilibrating energy as it's moving into the hot part of the cycle. When the sun is sitting on the equator, there's an equilibration that takes place. Just like you're fired up when the sun is at its most vigorous activity, you're cooled down when the sun is in the quote-unquote underworld. That has a measurable effect on your physiology. It has a measurable effect upon your thoughts, intentions, and actions. You can be fired up, you act a certain way. You can be cool and receptive and contemplative, introverted, you act a certain way. We take advantage of the same shift in energy yearly with regard to our own individual development, physiologically, our familial development, social development, growth and development, as well as communal with our people. So that's why we deal with these different cycles. Now, yesterday was the first, the equinox, the first day of the equinox began around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yesterday we also released, and this is during Apoo, we released our publication, MMARA Ne Kyi, Divine Law and Divine Hate. And let me show you a copy. This is the softcover version, MMARA Ne Kyi, Divine Law and Divine Hate, parts 1 through 5. Now we first published MMARA Ne Kyi. The first installment was 13,007. And then we have part 2, part 3, part 4, and part 5 over the coming years. We've put together all 5 installments into one text. We have a softcover version, and then there's also the ebook version. The ebook version is a free download, and we sell the softcover version. We print the softcover versions ourselves, in-house, in color, and then we have, you can go to the website, you can look at all the softcover versions of our books, as well as the ebook versions of our books. We have about 12 books, over 60 research articles. We have about 45 videos at this point. We have about 10 hours, which is about 56 hours of instructional material dealing with ancestral religion, culture, and nation building. And then we also have about 10 hours, 9.5 hours of audio. So dealing with MMARA Ne Kyi, first with Apoo. Po means to reject, to repulse. So when we're dealing with Apoo, we went through the first half of the year, the cool half of the year, from September 22nd, December 21st, up until the evening point of March 21st. 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness, and now the sunlight is beginning to increase. When we move into the second half of the year, we want to reject, repel, clean out any negative debris that we've picked up during the first half, so we can move into the second half of the year clean, so we can execute what we seeded and what we germinated during the cool half of the year. Now we want to bring that forth, just like the spring, we want to bring it forth. In fact, fefewbere, bere in Akan means time, fefel means beautiful, but then fe also means to sprout or to come forth. So it's the beautiful time, but it's also the time of coming forth. So we're bringing forth what we seeded and germinated during September, and that cycle in September, the fall season, and the winter season beginning December 21st up until March 21st and forward. So this is why we released the MMARA Ne Kyi during the Apoo festival. Po means to reject, to clean out, to repel negativity for the integrity of divine order to be maintained. In Akan culture, the term for order, arrangement is Nhyehyee. The Supreme Being's order or arrangement is Nyamewaa-Nyame, Nhyehyee. Nyamewaa is the Great Mother, Nyame is the great father. So Nyamewaa-Nyame Nhyehyee is the divine order. The great mother and father's divine order, the supreme being's order. In ancient Kamit and Kamit, you'll find that Amen, the great father, and Amenet, the great mother, they were always shown together from the beginning. There was never a time when there was just Amen and no Amenet. There was never a time when there was just Amenet, the great mother, and no Amen. Amen and Amenet have always been together, husband and wife, male and female, expansive and contractive, and so forth. The oldest religious compositions yet unearthed are the Neteru texts or the pyramid texts, and you find Amen and Amenet together in those texts from the beginning. That's textual. That has to do with regard to research. When you deal with the culture itself, we attune to Amen ritually, we attune to Amenet ritually, so we have experiential knowledge of Amen and Amenet as two halves of that divine whole. That goes across the board. No matter what Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religious and cultural practices you engage in or investigate, you will find within the culture, no matter, notwithstanding the fact that some people have been infected by European culture and have infected their practice, but if you look within the culture, look within the language, you will find the great mother and the great father. Amen is called Nyame or Nyame in Akan culture. It's just a variation of the term Amen. So Nyame is the great father. Amenet or Amenat is called Nyamewaa in Akan culture. It's the same thing. The term Sekher in ancient Kamit means plan or arrangement. Amenet-Amen Sekher is the great mother and great father's plan or arrangement. That's divine order. Amenet-Amen Sekher is Nyamewaa-Nyame Nhyehyee in Akan, which is divine order, the divine arrangement. Divine order is composed of two complementary poles, the expansive pole and the contractive pole. It's like breath, expansion and contraction. The expansive pole of order is law, comprised of Ma'al and Ma'at, the male and female forces of divine law and balance. That's the expansive pole of order. The contractive pole of order is hate, and there are deities of hate. Herubehudet, Herubedeti, Sechima, Sekhmet are the male and female forces of divine hate. Hate has always been divine. So in the text, we show the nature of divine law and its identity with love. Love and law is the same word. So we show etymologically, tracing it back to ancient Kamit, that law and love are the same word and the same concept. When the whites and their offspring talk about love, they're typically talking about the perversion of love, which is lust, which is a misguided desire. So they talk about falling in love, falling out of love, and so forth. That concept doesn't exist in reality. That's lust. Law is the divinities Ma'al and Ma'at. These are Abosom. They are Orisha. They are Vodou. They are Ntorou, Ntorotu divinities. Forces in nature that we invoke, that possess, that communicate through divination, that maintain balance in our bodies, maintain balance in the bodies of all created entities, naturally, divinely created entities in the universe. This is Ma'al and Ma'at, the expansive pole of order, the expression of order. Then you have Herubehudet and Sechima Sekhmet, who in Akan are called Benna and Abenna. They're the male and female forces of divine hate. So we trace etymologically and culturally, phonetically, etymologically, and so forth, and cosmologically, the origin of the term hate, which does not come from English. It does not come from the Proto-Indo-European so-called roots. Those roots can be found in the language of ancient Kamit and Kamit. And then we also show the exact same terms in the Akan language just to show the continuity. And it can be shown in languages across Afuraitkaitnit, Africa. So hate is a word that comes from our culture. It means to break or destroy. That's the fundamental meaning of it, to reject, to repel, Your immune system is the agent, and lymphatic system is the agent and agentess of the divine hate within your body. Just like you have an immune system within your body, which is a microcosm governed by forces of energy, male and female, the great body of the Supreme Being, Amenet-Amen, have a divine immune system governed by Heru Bekudet and Sekhmet. We also call them Benna and Abena in Akhan culture. They are called Ogun and Iyami Abeni in the Yoruba tradition. These are the forces, male and female, of divine hate. They reject or repel disorder for the maintenance and integrity of the divine order. So when you deal with law, you're dealing with the expression of order. Law expresses order. So if someone tells you to put something in alphabetical order, that's the charge. Then you have to see what are the laws that govern alphabetical order. So we know B comes after A, C comes after B, and so forth. Those are the laws that express the order that's attempting to be achieved. Law is the expression of order. Hate is the impression of order. Through hate, through law, for example, the divine plan is laid out through Ma'an, Ma'at, the plan for the universe, the place of everything in the universe, how they are to interact, that's laid out, that's expressed through law. Through hate, it's impressed. Hate is the impression of order. So through divine hate, the forces of divine hate, male and female, that order is impressed or imprinted upon the created entities within creation. And if you go outside the parameters that are impressed by these forces, then you set yourself up for destruction. It's the same thing with the immune system. So the universe is created, Abadie, or the created universe, is created through law, but is sustained through hate. Law is expressed, hate is impressed. Law is the expression of order, hate is the impression of order. To not understand the divinity of hate, as well as the divinities that govern hate, is to not understand one half of the created universe. You have no knowledge of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit cosmology, culture, religion, philosophy, and so forth if you do not understand the divinity of hate and the divinities of hate. If you don't understand the identity of law and love, which is the expressive aspect of order, and the divinities of hate, which are the impressive aspects of order, you have no knowledge of culture. No matter what group you come from, whether it's Akan, Yoruba, Ewe, Igbo, Chokwe, Tswana, whatever it is, whatever practice you engage in, these concepts are embedded within the culture because our culture is a reflection of the created universe, of Abadie, of the divine order. Our culture is simply an expression of that order and an impression of that order. So if you look in the language, if you look in the culture, if you look in the traditional, authentic practices, you will find law and hate, expansion and contraction, expression and impression throughout the cultures. To take away hate is like to take away your immunity. It doesn't matter how wonderful your other systems are designed. If you don't have any immunity, your body will collapse. If you have a cancerous tumor that develops, the first thing that happens is your body's cells begin to rally and attack the cancerous cells. They revolt against the cancerous cells to arrest the development and proliferation of the cancerous cells. But they don't stop at revolt, the revolution. They continue to isolate the cancerous cells, the tumor, destroy them, and then expel them from the body. So that's resolution. So in the text we talk about Nyansa, or wisdom, being composed again of two poles. The expansive pole of wisdom or intelligence is revolution, and the contractive pole of wisdom or intelligence, divine wisdom or intelligence, is resolution. So revolution and resolution are two halves of a whole, expansion and contraction. So we go into detail about that. There are deities that govern both poles. The governess of the pole of revolution is Tahuti. Divine wisdom, again, is governed by, made up of two poles, the expansive and contracting poles of divine wisdom. The governor of the expansive pole is Tahuti, divine wisdom. The governess of the contractive pole is Tekit, or Seshat, the female divine scribe, divine female wisdom divinity. Tehuti and Tekit, or Tehuti and Seshat, are the male and female forces of divine wisdom. Ma'at and Ma'at are the male and female forces of divine law and balance. They do interact with one another, but Tehuti and Seshat are the male and female force of divine wisdom. The expansive pole of wisdom is revolution, the contractive pole is resolution. So we show in the text how divine wisdom is always supportive of divine hate. So we show how Tehuti holds the prisoners so that they can be destroyed, killed by Heru Behudeh. Tehuti supports the destruction of disordered individuals. So just like if you have cancerous cells in your body, the immune system cells are designed to not only revolt against the cancerous cells, but to eradicate the cancerous cells and expel them from the body, from the community. We have immune system cells within our own community, people who are immune system cells. If they are told that hate is wrong, hate is evil, hate is self-destructive, it's a low vibration of energy, you just removed your immunity from your world, community, body, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, world, body. And then when you do that, you set yourself up for all kinds of disease, infection, and perpetual enslavement, physiologically, culturally, politically, economically, socially. This is why the whites and their offspring teach that hate is evil, hate is wrong, hate is immature, hate is just an emotion. That's pure foolishness. We have a number of so-called scholars, so-called elders, elderesses, some of whom are misinformed, who have just embraced the nonsense of pseudo-spirituality, pseudo-psychology, pseudo-humanitarianism, various forms of, various schools of pseudo-esoteric thought, quote unquote. They've just embraced that nonsense. They've never embraced ancestral, authentic ancestral religious practices. They've never embraced Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral culture and religion from the true understanding. So what they've done is embraced white pseudo beliefs, blackened them up, and then represented to us as real, concrete, authentic, and so forth. Then of course you have individuals who deliberately lie to our communities for profit because they're agents of the whites and their offspring. Most of our people who are teaching this nonsense about hate being evil, hate being wrong, hate being low level, and all that nonsense, they receive that information from the whites and their offspring, and they have grafted it upon ancient Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture. We are setting the record straight. This has always been true. It's always been part of the culture, but we simply don't look into our culture because most of us psychologically still are enamored with the whites and their offspring. Deep down inside, many of us believe the whites and their offspring are superior. So what happens is you have individuals who talk about African liberation, African culture, African this, African that, then they sneak off to white pseudo-esoteric bookstores, pseudo-metaphysical bookstores, get on occult websites. They study that information because they think it's the highest level of development, when in reality, it's a lack of understanding of cosmology fundamentally. They take that false information, they blacken it up, they say this is what our ancestresses and ancestors were teaching. Some of the fools say the whites and their offspring held this information as custodians until it was time for us to wake up. That's nonsense. The pseudo-esoteric nonsense, pseudo-metaphysical nonsense, pseudo-occult nonsense, that's all misinformation. Yes, there are elements of things within everything. You can tell the truth about one thing so that you can set up a lie about 10 more things. When people are studying the Kabbalah, studying Hermeticism, studying Gnosticism, studying Sufism, thinking they're engaged in some esoteric process, they're engaged in nonsense. misinformation. If you have the respect to study your own culture fully and fully invest yourself in your own culture, it'll take you to the actual forces in nature that govern all things. We are attuned to that as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. And only Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people have that capacity to align with the forces that govern creation. That's where the culture comes from, because the divinities, the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, and so forth, they are the embodiments of divine order in creation. We have the capacity to align with them and align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with that order, and then express that and see it in every aspect of creation that is natural, authentic, and created with a capital C. We go into all of that information and more, and we go into detail about how the culture has been infected, not only by people here in the West, but also by our people who have been infected with the idiocy of Islam, Christianity, Hebrewism, Hinduism, Buddhism over the past 1,000+ years on the continent. And if those infections, even from the ancient Western Sudanic empires, Ghana, Mali, Songhai, dealing with Timbuktu and so forth, some of our people were infected with the idiocy of Islam. The Muslim invasions, the brainwashed blacks who allied with the Arabs, who were degenerates, brought a degenerate culture, a false philosophy into the western part of the continent. Most of our people didn't have anything to do with that. Some of the leadership did, but most of our people did not. But some of our people brought that infection into the forest belt and other parts of the continent where we migrated after the invasions. We reestablished culture. Some of the culture was infected, some of it was not. But you have people on the continent right now who are descended from those who were infected with those pseudo notions of culture, philosophy, spirituality, and they have passed on these foolish infections as authentic culture for hundreds of years. So some of our people go to the continent, they sit in front of elders and eldresses that they believe are elders and eldresses, who are family and grandmothers, grandfathers. They can trace their lineage back hundreds of years, over 1,000 years. But it only traces back to those Muslim invasions where people embraced an infected culture, and they've been passing that on ever since. We need to deal with our ancestresses and ancestors. We have parents, we have grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great, going all the way back to West Afurakai, Central, South, East, ancient Kamit, ancient Kamit, Nubia, all within our blood circle. We are dependent on no one to attach to our ancient culture and reestablish our ancient culture within our blood circles, within our so-called bloodlines, but our blood circles within our communities, and reestablish that right here where we are on Asase Afua, the Earth Mother. So we go into that information, all parts 1 through 5. Then we also have a newly published appendix where we have a great deal of etymological information, linguistic information, and more analysis cosmologically on the understanding of identity of law and love, and then the divinity of hate. So you can go to our website, Odwirafo.com. We'll put it on the screen. You can get the softcover version of the text, but then you can also download the ebook version of the text, and then the other books that we have published that support this information. Kuku Tuntum, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, where we deal with the cosmology of creation. We also deal with trustery. We also go into detail showing that Jesus and Moses and Muhammad and Abraham and Isaac and Ishmael and Buddha and Yahweh and Allah and Brahman, all these characters are fictional. We show the deities from ancient Kamit that they stole descriptive titles from, and certain fragments from the cosmology to manufacture white characters and make us believe that these characters walked around on Earth. They did not exist as white. They didn't exist as black either. They didn't exist at all. So we go into detail about that in the Kuku Tumtum. We have the Okra complex, the soul of Akanfo, where we talk about the nature and function of the soul, the divine consciousness, as a divinity or force in creation that dwells within your head region, that we align ourselves with spiritually. Our divine function is encoded within that divinity that dwells within our head region, so we go into detail about that. We also have Uben Sheng, when we talk about the nature and function of various ritual practices, whether it's libation, shrine consultation, divination, ritual song, ritual dance, ritual prayer, nature worship, all these various things that we engage in. We show how they deal with the reception, processing, and transmission of energy in a measurable fashion. We don't engage in any ritual practice that's purely symbolic. If it's just symbolic without substance, we don't have anything to do with that. So we go into detail about that. We also have Oberema, Afurakani manhood. We also have Kukutuntum, Uben Sheng. We have Wabo Jida. We have Afurakani manhood. We have, of course, the MMARA Ne Kyi. And then we have a number of other texts. So when you go to the website, you'll see those various texts. The 6 of them are in softcover, and all the rest are in PDF version. So we just like to say Medase or Yedase. We thank you to the people who have been supporting our work. We will be giving an update on the next presentations in different cities that are coming up. We have a presentation coming up in DC, as well as in Houston, Texas, coming up very soon. So keep checking the website, the Gwamu Kasa page for that, as well as just the front page of the website. And you can also check us out on Facebook at Afuraitkaitnit. That's our Facebook name. And then we also have the Afuraitkai-Afuraitkai.ning.com, our own network site that you can connect with us on that Ning network. There are forums, there are discussions, people post videos, a number of different things. So, Yedase, we thank you for your support. We will be publishing more information very soon. We have a number of publications that we're preparing to release in the coming weeks. So keep checking the website out for that, and we will be updating you very soon. Yedase.